JSE still trading positive, though. After opening weaker, we seem to have retraced some of those mid-morning gains and just above the opening levels at this point.
Yes, well, with the United Kingdom closed and the States closed today, the volume is very thin. A little bit of buying coming in. It is the end of the month, and guys are possibly pushing up some of the prices, trying to hold them for month-end on month-end pricing. So a little bit of buying coming in, but very lackluster at the moment, and we'll probably stay between probably 50 points down to 50 points up most of the day today.
And I presume it's mostly local buyers in the market due to those holidays in the UK and the US.
Yeah, absolutely. Mainly just the local punters in the market and one or two of the normal funds trading today. But most people will be waiting for news to come out of the States and the reopening of the foreign markets tomorrow.
Well, surprisingly, we had some pretty poor news out of the States on Friday, and that followed poor jobs numbers on Thursday as well. So we had housing data, we had consumer spending numbers, and pretty bleak on Friday. And despite that, we still had the Dow Jones ending a little bit higher on Friday.
Yes, it did. It ended up finishing in positive territory, although for the whole week it was down. The housing number is very poor at minus 11%, and we want to see if that trend continues. If that trend continues with minus 10, minus 11% month-on-month housing numbers, you know, it would really put a dampener on the growth in the States and a slowdown for the whole world economy. So something to watch. It might have just been because it was a lot of holidays during that period in the States as well, over the Easter weekends, etc. But we'll have to take a close look at that. And there's a very disturbing trend if it continues.
Of course, that housing data does feed through to consumer confidence and in turn consumer spending as well, doesn't it?
Yes, I think the consumer spending numbers in the States were slightly weaker as well. And you can see they're battling to start to get that engine of consumer spending in the States. And really that will be the push to get the economy 100% back on track. So that is battling at the moment. And it looks like the easing from the Fed will have to continue. QE2 finishes at the end of June, and we'll have to wait and see if there's going to be a QE3. If the housing data continues to be that bad, maybe there will be a QE3.
Well, I suppose it's not really surprising that we had the Dow closing a little bit higher on Friday, because that poor economic data led to weakness in the dollar, and that's lifted commodity prices, so boosting material stocks in the United States and also boosting our markets with those resources stocks ending higher at the end of last week.
Yes, absolutely. The resources had come down quite a bit earlier in the week, but buying came back with that weaker dollar. We saw very good upgrades for Fremont copper and gold. They were upgraded, and that pushed the States market up quite a bit. We have to see M&A activity still coming through, which is supportive of equity markets throughout the world. So a slightly weaker dollar and a little bit more buying onto the commodities again.
Well, it looks like Greece isn't quite as much of a concern going into this week as it was going into last week, because last week it looked like the IMF was going to hold off giving any more money to Greece, and of course that could lead to a default for that country. But it looks like a little bit settled this week, well, for now anyway. Yes, it looks like the IMF will come in with funds for Greece, so it will hold off that default for a couple of months now. We'll see if the Greece can instill their austerity measures that they want to. It looks like they're really battling to do that, and they really have to. You know, without the austerity measures, they will not be able to pay back those funds. So for the next month or two, I think they'll be fine, but we'll probably be again in the scenario where they're going to be close to default in a few months again. Well, how are you reading the Rand's movements? Because last week we had that Rand trading up to R7.07 against the dollar, all the way back to 6.92 at the end of last week, and that's how we're trading again today. Is this purely a dollar story? It is mainly a dollar story. I think on the equity side, we've definitely seen less foreign flows into the equity market in South Africa. There is still quite solid flows coming into the bond side. So that bond side, the flows coming into the bonds are keeping that Rand relatively firm. And I think as the interest rates in Europe and as well as the States start to move out, we'll start to see a big withdrawal of funds, and that's really when the Rand will weaken. I think at the moment now, just based on purely on a slightly weaker dollar, that the Rand is stronger. But when the outflows from our bond market start to happen, probably late in the year as interest rates start to move in foreign countries, we'll start to see a real weakening of the Rand. Until then, I think the Rand will be range bound from about 680 to 710. Let's take a look at some of those results that came out today, and perhaps starting with Caidz, because their HEPS down, well, profits down 48%, and it looks like they've had a few headwinds to contend with. Yes, definitely. If you take a look at, again, putting into the foreign equity flows up to this stage this year have been about 3 billion, and last year they were 33 billion. So it just shows you how much less flows are coming into the market, and a company like Caidz, which does a lot of trading, being affected by that, and as well as margins on the trading side. So margins are coming down as well as the volume
on the JSE, and that's problematic for them, and it's just showing in their numbers.
Tiger Brands out with numbers as well today, and it looks like it's a bit of a mixed bag. So while some divisions have done pretty well, other divisions have come under pressure and also under more competition as well.
Yes, well, I think Tiger Brands are spending a lot of money to expand into Africa, and they're trying to get into Africa to get that extra growth that they need. Generally, a very sound business, still creating a lot of cash and a lot of annuity. They have had a lot of headwinds, but I think that they've spent a lot of money into Africa, a lot of acquisitions in Nigeria, and sizable acquisitions at that. So I think going forward, they've created themselves a very good base, and going forward into Africa, I think they will get that growth coming through. And one of the better picks on the exchange currently, Tiger Brands.
Well, another company that has faced headwinds, that's Illovo. So it's faced the drought conditions earlier this year. It's also faced the strength of the rand, which has impacted it.
Yes, I think their headline earnings were down 27%, a very disappointing number from Illovo. If you take a look at Tongot's numbers, also have been affected by the drought. They're only 4% down. So you can see in the share price today, I think Tongot's slightly up, whereas Illovo is down 1.5%. Doesn't seem like they've managed their product very well. They've had very good growth in some of their areas, and obviously couldn't get that sugar out of those areas into the markets where they needed them, and really relying a lot on South Africa, where they had very poor production. So not managed very well there, but they do expect it to increase in the following quarter. We have to take a closer look at those numbers, but relatively disappointing numbers from Illovo.
Rob, Eqstra out with the trading statement, and it looks like there's a nice turnaround at Eqstra. It's expecting headline earnings per share of 60 cents compared to a loss per share of 21.7 cents in the previous period. So a strong turnaround coming through for them.
Yes, 80 cents turnaround on a share that's trading only at 6 Rand. So a very good turnaround from Eqstra. We see that the yellow metals are performing very well with increased production from all of the miners. They do have quite a lot of yellow equipment and big earth moving machinery in Eqstra, and definitely that uplift in mining production is helping them. A good set of numbers. I think that growth going forward into this year will carry on going, and looking relatively solid at 6 Rand 25. Something to look at in your portfolio, but you just have to, it's a call on whether you see China growing and mining production continue. If you think that's it, I think it's looking relatively good.
So pretty similar to some parts of the Barloworld business and also Bell Equipment.
Yes, Bell Equipment looking for the under cautionary at the moment, but they've also improved dramatically over the last 6 months. Barloworld surprised to the upside immensely with their numbers, so looking very good on that side. So that whole industry of yellow metals looking very firm. There are pockets of very good business for them, and it's just whether it can be maintained with increased mining production, especially in China. So if that China story continues, mines in South Africa will continue producing, and they'll get very good flow into the yellow metals.